In this video, I'm going to show you how we can populate fairly straightforward trackers in SlideGen. Before we jump into the platform, I'm going to give you some more context. This is the PowerPoint that I'm uploading to the platform. I have my slides all laid out exactly as I want them and agreed with my client. The idea is that I can populate this whole report once, duplicate it, and replace the data behind it. Coming to the data, this is the important part. Right now, in order to populate your trackers in SlideGen, if you're hoping to show a wave-on-wave comparison, you need to have a set of merged tables with a banner for your waves. This is because each time we refresh the report, we are updating all of the data in the chart, table, or text box, rather than simply appending a new column to an existing chart. Depending on your needs, it's absolutely fine if the number of columns in the data grows. For example, here I have a set of tables that shows me just the last 4 waves. Whereas in this version, my file is growing so that I now have 5 waves. Both setups are totally fine, and depending on your specific requirements, you might choose one over the other. Jumping into the platform, rather than making you watch me map the data, I just want to spend some time talking you through some of the different slides that I've created and how I've made use of the different transformations that are available to me within SlideGen. The brand funnels slide is fairly straightforward. I've literally mapped data for unaided awareness, consideration, and purchase questions for the different brands, so Wild Roots and then each of the individual competitor brands. I've also brought in the base size and the different question text into the footnote. The unaided awareness slide is a little bit different because here we're actually tracking the data over time in a line chart. But the key here is that I only want to show the top 4 competitors. So Wild Roots and then whatever the top 4 scoring brands are for the current quarter. The way I've done this is I've actually mapped all of the data to the chart. So all 4 quarters and then all of the brands, including none of these. I've then used the transformations to sort the data from high to low and then anchor Wild Roots at the top so that I'm always capturing Wild Roots and whatever the other 4 top competitors are. I've done a little bit of extra work by filtering out the none of these answer option. I want to make sure that that's never being captured in my top 4. I've then trimmed back the responses to keep only those top 5 answer options. So Wild Roots plus the top 4 scoring brands. In addition to that, I've also been able to apply some SIG testing to show whether the difference from one quarter to the other is significantly higher or lower. For the brand metrics, the main thing to note here is that the data for each of these brands is coming from different tables. And I've sorted the data for Wild Roots from high to low and pinned none of these at the bottom. The issue that you would normally have is that if you were to sort Summit from high to low, your answer options are going to be in a completely different order. So I've been able to use a transformation called copy order that takes the order of the response options from the Wild Roots table and applies it to the other individual tables. So these are always going to be in the order of this Wild Roots chart. This slide is showing me the top 2 box across the quarters for each of these individual statements. So we've got 8 statements in here. The key thing to point out here is that we are applying some SIG testing to show how the top 2 box changes over time. Actually, all of these follow a similar trend, which is the original quarter then significantly increases and then decreases twice. And this slide is basically a deep dive into the specific statement. So it's showing me strongly agree to strongly disagree, a top 2 box, and then SIG testing against the previous quarter. There's a couple of things I actually want to do before we update this deck. Firstly, I don't just want this slide for unaided awareness. I also want it for aided awareness, consideration, and purchased. So rather than having to do all of this again, I can actually just repeat this slide and put it in a loop for those 3 other questions. And you can see here that my top 4 actually changes depending on the question. It's also applying SIG testing on the new data, and it's updating the question text and the table name. I also have 8 different brand statements that we're testing. So this slide is set up for one of those statements, but I also want to repeat that for the remaining 7. And now we can download the deck. So this does still take me a little bit of time to set up. It took me around 30 minutes, but that's definitely quicker than it would have taken me to prepare these slides manually. But this is where the real time saving comes in. All of this is set up on Q4 2023 data. I now have my Q1 2024 data, and I need to repopulate the whole deck. I've already duplicated the project, so I've got a master copy to fall back on. I'm going to call this version Q1 2024. Once we've duplicated the project, we can upload our latest set of tables. And we can use this switch data feature to update the whole deck. Before I go ahead and do that, keep an eye on these numbers here. So we have 30, 86, 50, 13. We've switched the data, and now we have 31%, 86%, 48%, and 10. If I download this deck, this is officially our Q1 2024 deck. All of the data is updated. You can see we're showing Q2 23 to Q1 24. My different sample sizes have updated. The SIG testing has been reapplied. The order of the response options will have been resorted. My SIG testing here has been reapplied again. You can see actually there's a trend that the top two boxes significantly increasing again. And all of my statements will be updated as well. Now you have more time to focus on adding your commentary, and you might even have time for a coffee break.